Mr. Siri, do you want to describe why it's appropriate for HHS Secretary Kennedy to actually do some research on vaccines? I'm quite sure, tell me if I'm wrong here, but when Mr. Kennedy pressed Fauci for the random control blind placebo trials on childhood vaccines, oh yeah, we've done all kinds of them. Couldn't produce one. I know in testimony we've had other officials of the CDC or FDA ask the same question. They just can't come up with them. So can you set the record straight in terms of what studies have actually been done on the vaccines on the childhood schedule?
Absolutely. So in my 66-page submission, I set out every single routine childhood vaccine on the CDC schedule today with sources citing to the FDA underlying clinical trial documents that confirm. So if you dispute this term, you got to argue with the FDA. Not a single routine childhood vaccine on the current schedule, other than the Covaxin licensed for 12 and older, was licensed based on a clinical trial in which the control group received a placebo. And if the control group received another vaccine, that vaccine was also not licensed based on a placebo-controlled trial. That is all set forth in here. It is categorically accurate, a placebo meaning. But to answer your question, why look at the safety of childhood vaccines? And the answer, I think, is this. We should be looking at all environmental insults, because we are in the midst right now of a pandemic. There's been a lot of talk. We got to be ready for the next pandemic. We have a pandemic right now. It's a pandemic of chronic disease amongst our children. Over 50% of kids in America have a chronic disease right now. That's up from under 13% in the early 80s. What's changed? What has caused massive immune dysregulation to occur amongst our children? Why do I say that? Because most of the chronic diseases that we've seen exploding, asthma, you go down the list, have an etiology in being a form of immune dysregulation. And I've set that forth in my submission as well. So you have an explosion in chronic disease since the early 80s. Most of those chronic diseases are a form of immune dysregulation. What has changed in terms of might be causing the immune systems of our children en masse to go haywire? Well, maybe we should start by ruling out the fact that we have gone from 3 injections on the CDC schedule in 1986, the year the National Child Vaccine Draft was passed, to currently, if a child gets the full CDC schedule, follows it today, by 1 year of age, gets 29 injections, including in utero, okay? 3 to 29. And every one of those vaccines, as I mentioned earlier, was clinical trialed and licensed by a company knowing they would not be liable for design defect claims. We need to study that, like everything else.